No! Hello, welcome to the last day of Spooktober in the Spooktoberfest 2020, and what better film to talk about than Halloween 2 came out in 1981, the original sequel of John Carpenter's classic from 1978. This one picks up right where the first Halloween left off. Michael Myers is shot off a balcony and he disappeared. Laurie Strode is sent to a hospital, and Dr. Loomis continues his quest to hunt for Michael on this long Halloween night. In many ways, the director Rick Rosendahl tried to emulate and capture whatever that made the first Halloween so successful. The blaring wide-angle lens cinematography maneuvering through the streets of Haddonfield, Illinois in first-person point of view as we see the killings. The still pretty much the same piece of music by Carpenter, and the use of fore, mid, and background to create suspense. The technical aspect of the film is all there. However, the issue I have with this sequel is that it does not stand on its own. I respect the fact they tried to give the whole story some sort of finale of not keeping things so ambiguous in a way that can spawn a shit ton of sequels that would turn into a money machine with no substance for the studio, but which eventually happened anyway. It's not a bad attempt in concept and probably on paper, but the actual realization of these things just felt a bit thin. If you don't watch the original the night before or right before you watch this one, Halloween 2 really does feel like an add-on, an extension of some sort to drag the runtime out, but without furthering much of anything, or just a long after credit scene. The reason why that is, despite many, is the mirror between the beginning of Halloween 2 and the end of it. It starts and ends at pretty much the exact same place, narratively and for the characters internally. Now granted, I'm not gonna sit here and complain about the shells on screens because it's not like the first Halloween nailed everything about them. However, I am going to argue how this one feels significantly more scattered. The world is getting bigger. It's not an individual thing for people around Laurie Strode anymore. Michael Myers is now walking around town, eventually in a hospital. Even though it seems like a very reasonable and sensible continuation from the first film, it also creates a byproduct of having characters that have nothing to do with anything to die just to perpetuate the idea that this is still a slasher horror film. Characters die on screen, sometimes off screen, you forget about them in the next minute, and they try to bring it back 20 minutes later. It feels as if scenes and sequences, especially the kills throughout the film, are just set up for a simple scare in the finale. Characters are left off, and once they pick them back up, you have to think where, when, and how you saw them last, because for the most part, you don't really give a shit about them. Compared to the first one, it still feels the people around our hero are the ones being affected. Rather, in this sequel, it feels they have nothing to do with Laurie, who I guess is still the protagonist. In theory, the film doesn't have a hero. It doesn't have a protagonist. For most of the runtime, Laurie is stuck in a hospital being paranoid, and she really isn't doing anything until the last 30 minutes or so. You can say how the protagonist of this one is more of Dr. Loomis, but he also got just as little runtime. He very much acted the same way as he did the first one, running the subplot of probably the backbone to the Halloween saga of exploring and finding Michael Myers. The film feels so disconnected from the supposed lead, Laurie, yet we still cut to her every once in a while, like somehow she is affecting the narrative. They try to give some sort of reason why Michael Myers is hunting down Laurie and why they exist in the same story world together, that I guess you just kind of have to live with until the finale, but I won't get into that because spoilers. Even though the film is technically finally put together, the cinematography looks good, the music is eerie, and I can't complain about the direction that much, there are still a few head scratchers for me, like how a lot of the shots can have a few seconds shaven off or be elongated for a few more, especially in the first half. Oh no, there's an emergency, let me slow walk to build up the suspense a little because it's more important than some person dying in a hospital. And that's a really good idea, to have the background where nothing is happening, to have brighter lighting and lines and shapes and details at unnecessary moments. It's not distracting at all. The mask, even though it's the same mask from before, it doesn't look as good because Deborah Hill, the co-writer and producer for both films, took the mask home. With her smoking habit, the mask turned yellow and the hair turned red-ish. The actor who portrayed Myers in the sequel, Dick Warlock, was also shorter than Nick Castle, who portrayed Myers in the original, so some shots just do not look flattering for him at all. This shot just makes him look like a kid. There may also be too many medium shots. The whole thing felt a bit boring. Of course, by this point, I'm kinda just nitpicking, but as a whole, it's watchable. It's better than a lot of slasher sequels out there, I imagine, but considering that I was never a huge fan of the original Halloween, despite acknowledging how well directed it was, a negative reaction from me for this sequel isn't something that just comes out of nowhere. I'm going to give Halloween 2 1981 a C-. Thank you so much for watching the Spooktoberfest 2020, going through all 31 films with me. It was fun, even though it took some time to prep so I don't fall behind. I'm looking forward to what we're going to do for the next year. Leave a comment which movie you liked the most, which you hated the most, and why. Are there any recommendations for Spooktoberfest 2021 or questions you want to ask? Anything, really. Leave them in the comments. I'll make sure to check them out. I'll make an after show after the outro, I think, talking about some of the movies that I have watched during the Spooktoberfest but decided not to cover for various reasons. And yeah, I'll see you there. Subscribe for more, and bye.